As part of Ferrari Fridays, William Ross from the Exotic Car Marketplace will be discussing all things Ferrari and interviewing people that live and breathe the Ferrari brand. Topics range from road cars to racing, drivers to owners, as well as auctions, private sales, and trends in the collector market.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Ferrari Marketplace. This is your host, William, and I appreciate everybody listening. And I didn't get an episode out last week. I've been working on some other things, so kind of got a little busy. But hey, back and ready for more. I hope everyone's enjoying this podcast. I said I'm still working on the kinks and whatnot. Like I said, I don't have some professional studio, with sound deadening on the walls and all that jazz and whatnot. I'm just kind of doing this on my desktop computer here with the microphone and whatnot. So hopefully it's getting there. I'm working on it. Like I said, any thoughts, any, suggestions, topics, anything, hey, just shoot me an email, william@theferrarimarketplace.com. Easy enough. I'd appreciate any input. Like I said, anything I can do to help improve this, anything to make this a better listening, enjoyment for you guys out there listening. I'd really appreciate it. Hey, I just want to make this a really awesome podcast. Everything, anything about Ferraris, not so much, even in the marketplace, hey, what's for sale? Hey, what happened at auction, at events, whatnot. So kind of run the gamut. Like I said, I noticed that in the first few episodes, there was quite a few downloads right off the bat, but it's kind of slowed down just a tad. But I don't know if that's just because of the topic, my crappy podcast talking, I guess. I don't know how you'd put that, but I don't know. But hey, I appreciate the people that are still listening and keep downloading these newer episodes. So again, I really appreciate that. And like I said, any thoughts, suggestions, whatnot, hey, just let me know. Just shoot me that email. I'd really appreciate any input. And hey, also just spread the word, get it out there. Tell your friends, tell your other Ferrari enthusiasts, car enthusiasts, whatnot. Tell them to download the episodes and take a listen. Like I said, can't hurt, right? It's not that much time out of your day. And what the heck? Pop it in while you're driving the car, something to listen to. I don't think my voice is that bad, do you? But anyways, onward to today's episode. Today, we are going to talk about the last Ferrari to win Le Mans. And we're going to talk about the race itself, too, because the race is crazy, crazy stuff. I don't know how familiar you all might be with that 1965 race, but it was some crazy stuff. But we are going to talk about chassis number 5893, the last Ferrari to win Le Mans, the 250 LM. Now, a little history behind that car. Now, Ferrari's game plan is they were racing that car quite a bit around. I think they built, I believe it was 34 of those cars. Now, they were trying to pull the fast one like they did the year before, the GTO, and, in 65, the FIA now wasn't having any of it in regards to, that's homologated and you do it. And they did, so you couldn't do the GTO because it wasn't homologated for the GT class. And so he tried to get it for the 250 LM, but they said, nah, I don't think so. They were not going to let that fly. So they had to run in the prototype class, which was going up against the Ford GT40s. Now, everyone's very familiar with that story, Ford versus Ferrari, and, bringing everything to light and whatnot. And, their first shot at this was in 64.
Attempting to reach you on your cellular device.
And sorry about that. I had a phone call coming in. Apologize for that. But anyways, everyone's very familiar with that whole story. But, the first race, the first time Ford obviously entered was 64. Just everything went to hell in a handbasket. And 65, they brought quite a few. Then they had two of the cars with the huge-ass 7-liter engines in them. They were just going all hell-bent, to beat Ferrari and whatnot. But anyways, that's what the story's about. This is a story about the 250 LM. So anyways, they had to run those cars in the prototype class against the Fords. So be it. So basically, they all thought they had no shot. So there was quite a few of these cars that were entered. A majority of them were actually entered by privateers. The one that we're going to talk about was actually, entered by Luigi Cinetti's North American Racing Team, NART, and do it. So that's where this came in. Now, there was a few other private entries that were put out there, but there's also a few factory entries that were put also out there. So there was a nice effort behind it, but they just thought no, they didn't have a chance because they were going to be classified in the prototype and they're going against the Ford GT40s. So, anyways, they hey, set things up. Let's get racing, right? So this car, they qualified in 11th place. I mean, yeah, it's down there a little bit ways. The thing was the Ford GT40s were, the top end speed on those things was absolutely ridiculous. The fastest it's ever been seen there at Le Mans. I think at one point they were 219 miles an hour, I think it was, on the Mulsanne. So obviously those things were, trucking along. Long story short, we know what happened with the Ford GT40s. But anyways, in this particular car, there was actually, and like I said, not sure I'm familiar with her, but listed on the driving entry, there was actually, it says there was 3. There was Mastin Gregory, Jochen Rindt, but also American Ed Hughes. Now, this is kind of a, as they say, a barstool story type deal in regards to Ed Hughes actually being one of the drivers or participating. It was really kept hush-hush for a long time, but, certain people said no, certain people said yes. Ed Hughes said yes. Luigi Chinetti Jr., who was actually at the race in the pits, said no, he didn't get in the car and race. Because the big thing is, by the rules and everything like that, if he had been in the car when Mastin came in and he got in, so if there would have been a big to-do about it and they would have got disqualified. So they really didn't get into it too much about it. So it kind of kept hush-hush. But it said, in the lore of the 24 Hours of Le Mans, it's pretty much stated that, he actually did drive. But, what I said, it all depends on who you were talking with. So anyways, so they qualify in 11th place. So they get trucking along, race starts, the GT40s, they take off just like bats out of hell, going in there. Well, in the 4th hour of the race, the car actually ran into some mechanical problems. And they had to change a distributor on the car and lost about 30 minutes. So they actually were like about 10 laps down 4 hours into the race. And they were down in 18th position. So it's, they had some catch up to. And basically, kind of more to the story was Mastin and Jochen did not even want to be there because they knew they had, in their minds, they had no shot of winning, and they thought it was just a big waste of time. So they kind of had an agreement between the two of them and whatnot. And again, we don't know if Ed was involved in this or not, but had another thing. We're just going to drive flat out. We're just going to beat the piss out of this car and just go balls out and see what we can do. Now, obviously, everyone knows back in those days with the cars, it was more, it wasn't a sprint like it was today where you're almost doing qualifying laps, lap in, lap out. You had to, I want to say nurse the car, but you had to really take care of your machinery back then with your cars. Not saying they were super delicate, but, this equipment, being manufactured back then, the brakes, engine, stuff like that, tires and stuff, wasn't made to be beaten on lap in, lap out, lap in, lap out. So you really had to, and again, I don't want to say nurse the car, but you had to be very, I would say delicate, but you just had to know how to work the car and not push it to an extreme, but also not go too slow because obviously you want to win. But anyways, so these two were, had a thing saying, screw it, we're just going to go balls out as fast as we can. And then especially when the fact is came by the 4th hour, they had mechanical problems. They were stuck in the pits for about a half hour and went 10 laps down. So that kind of like putting things, oh, well, what's going on? So anyways, so cruising along and, kind of going, so they get back in the race. And, no one's really even paying attention to this car. And, because it's way down. It's 10 laps down. And there's really no way they'd have a shot in their mind. Anyways, even getting on the podium was, kind of out there. So, as I said, keep things interesting. We're just going to go balls out. Screw it. So anyways, the Ford, the 7-liter cars were some of the first that were getting knocked out of the race first. They had massive, just gas mileage issues were just horrendous. They keep having to make so many stops because these engines were just gulping down gasoline. And then the big thing that happened was because of the monstrous torque out of those 7 liters, their transmission just all blew up. So those two were out. First ones out were those big 7 liters. It just, one thing was, just the motors itself sucking up gas, but the transmission just couldn't handle the torque. But then the smaller engine Fords hit trouble. And so after 6 hours, all the Ford GT40s were out of the race. So all Ferraris held the top 5 places. And there it was theirs to lose. So, but anyway, and I could say, and lose they did because the factory entries ended up, falling apart. But anyways, in the middle of the night, the cars from the British Maranello concessionaires cars, they went out during the night. Then the factory cars, or factory sponsored, started to fall by the wayside. Now, the one thing was, as regards to, they're saying that the disc brakes, that got manufactured when the cars were not the greatest. So what happened was they were telling their drivers, hey, instead of using your brakes so much, use the engine to slow the car down. So, and as you know, that puts an immense amount of strain on a motor and transmission trying to do that. If you're going, 110 miles an hour in the corner and you drop it down into third or second, that should only be topping out at 80 miles an hour or something like that, that's really going to just blow things up. Well, sure enough, bam. All the factory entries from Ferrari started going by the wayside. So all of these were pretty much, come morning, all those, the factory entries, everything were all done, everything like that. But now, see, in the middle of the night, this is where that, the legend, the story comes in about this supposed third driver, Ed Hughes. Now, what came about was, obviously, with the rules and regulations going on, and those two, Gregory and Rindt, not even giving two shits about the race, and just going on. Well, when Gregory was in the car and they had stint, Jochen Rindt he disappeared. And it's kind of debatable. People really aren't exactly sure if he was over there sleeping or if he was having some beers and having some fun or whatnot. Some even said he actually even left the track entirely because he figured there's no way this car was going to make it. So what happened was when Mastin came in to change drivers because he was just absolutely beat. He had been doing a long stint. I think he did it like a 2 or 3, stints, straight stints in the car. He came in and obviously Rindt was nowhere to be found. So they don't know what to do. So this is where the story comes in, where Ed Hughes jumped in the car under the cover of darkness and took off and started driving. How many hours? Not exactly sure, but again, because it really was never listed as him being a driver, so it wasn't really kind of written down, saying, I did this many hours, did this stint, blah, blah, blah. But I said, Janae's son, he didn't definitively say no, but he did not definitively say yes that he drove in the car. But his said it was though he thought it was highly unlikely. So anyways, coming back and, so supposed Hughes is out in the car and he comes back in and there we go. And guess who gets back in the car? Gregory. Mastin gets back in the car and starts driving some more. So by this time, Greg's back in the car. They found Rindt, and Rindt's like shocked as all get out, because you can imagine saying, well, wait, the car's not retired? So it's kind of, funny. It's like, oh, okay, well, maybe we do have a shot at this now. Because he's coming in, what happened was they were basically coming in the morning. They were the cars all falling out. They were in second place. But here's kind of another loop in the story, kind of just another, I would say, not curveball, but another, one story for the ages. They were actually in second place behind the Belgian team that was also in the 250 LM and running. Now, these all European cars were on Dunlops, but the Nart car with Gregory and Rindt were on Goodyears. Now, Mastin, Gregory, and Jochen Rindt were exceptionally faster than the drivers of the Belgian team. And so in the morning hours, a certain representative from the Dunlop Tire Company comes down to their pit, to the Nart pits, and I want to say kindly asked, but basically states, and under the guise that this was coming from the big man himself, Enzo. Please have your drivers slow down. Let the Belgian team win because they're on Dunlops and you guys are on Goodyears, and we can't have that because Ferraris at that time were all sold supplied with Dunlops. So Chinetti being Chinetti and being probably the only one that could really kind of, I guess, stand up to Enzo. I mean, history-wise, whatnot, and everything he'd done for him, said piss off. That wasn't going to happen. So everything's moving forward. And funny enough, what does happen to the Belgian team? One of their Dunlops explodes, and it just tears up the car to all the hell in the handbasket and shreds the bodywork, the whole 9 yards. So it just goes to pot. So by the time they were able to get the car back to the pits and get things repaired, it's over and done with. Rindt and Gregory are back in the front. So anyways, they cruise to victory, and they win by 5 laps. I mean, isn't that awesome or what? I mean, from the start of the race where two guys basically said, we have no chance of winning this race, to winning by 5 laps. I mean, they were 10 laps down after 4 hours in. Usually that thing, forget it, you're done. And then Rindt disappearing in the middle of the night. Then, supposedly Ed Hugas getting in the car in the middle of the night because he disappeared. So there's all these little stories within the story about stuff regarding this car or this race in the car and the drivers and everything. So will it ever be confirmed? No. Ed Hugas passed away, unfortunately, in 2006. So, but, Ed was a super nice gentleman, very honest man, and he had made the comment and said that, yeah, he did drive in the car. But again, some people say no, and I don't know if there's paranoia that they think, that they're going to go back 50 some odd years and basically say, oh, sorry, we're going to take that win away from you. I doubt it highly. What's done is done. So, but it's kind of just a very, very interesting story. But that car, the last Ferrari to win Le Mans, the 250 LM chassis 5893, now resides in the Indianapolis Motor Museum in Indianapolis at the Speedway. I always thought this was kind of odd in regards to the certain cars. And I don't know if you've ever been to that museum, but it's awesome. It's got some cool stuff. And you would think going there, they probably just got old Indy cars and, the front engine stuff and the Offenhausers and that stuff, from back in the day. But actually, they have quite a collection. Now, I know recently they've been starting to sell off a bunch of stuff that really either I don't say needed work or whatnot, really didn't fit into their parameters. I think they're kind of restructuring things. But they got some really cool stuff. I mean, they got the last Ferrari to win Le Mans. And I can't imagine what that thing would be worth if that thing went out to market or even to auction. I know in 2014, a 250 LM or recently went for almost just under 20 million, something like that. And that wasn't even one that won Le Mans, the last Ferrari to win Le Mans. So you got to figure this thing's probably 30, 40 million, be my guess. It'd be interesting to find out if someone had to try. I mean, I don't think you could price it. I mean, I think if it went to auction, you have to put a reserve at least 40 million on it. That's me. I don't know about you guys. Let me know your thoughts. Shoot me an email. Let me know what you guys think. But I'd love to hear that thing run. I think now there's some videos online. If you go to YouTube and whatnot, there's some of the histories like back in 2014. Sotheby's, I think it was Sotheby's. Has a video of it driving around. It's, early morning, it's only like 3.5 minutes long, but you hear that thing run. I know DK Engineering's got one. DK does a ton of stuff with the Ferraris and stuff like that. So, but those things sound just absolutely phenomenal. But anyways, that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about today was the last Ferrari to win Le Mans. Ferrari 250 LM chassis 5893. It's a great story. I mean, that in itself could be a movie, it sounds like. I mean, I don't know, you could try and squeeze 2 hours out of that, but it's pretty funny. I mean, it's just everything about it from Gregory and Rindt just, saying, screw this, we have no shot, let's just beat the hell out of the car and just go balls out right off the bat, and then being 10 laps down, Jochen just disappearing and whatnot. And, and then little side note I always thought was interesting, whenever you say Mastin Gregory, the guy's from Kansas, but you say his name, you think he's German or Austrian, he's from Europe or something like that, Mastin Gregory. It sounds like a European name, not an American name. And Jochen Rindt being the only F1 driver to posthumously win the F1 title, died tragically that year, but he still ended up winning the title with, I think it was like 2 or 3 races to go, something like that, but tragic story, but phenomenal driver. I mean, he probably would have went on to win a few more F1 titles in his time and probably some more, 24 Hours Le Mans, whatnot. I mean, just a phenomenal guy. So anyways, but that's all I have to talk about today for this podcast, this episode. I hope you enjoy it. And like I said, spread the word, get it out there, pass it around, shoot emails to people, post it wherever. I'd really appreciate all your help kind of make this grow. And any suggestions and thoughts, for this episode or other episodes, please let me know. I'm going to try and mix it up. I'm trying to see what you guys more like to listen to. Like I said, it seems like you like more about the cars itself than maybe like events like the Amelia, going to Cavallino, stuff like that. I don't know, but I'll try and do is get more specific about the cars. I know one of the first episodes I did on 250 GTOs, all of them. I'm going to get into more specific ones. And I think not next episode, maybe the episode after that, we're going to get into the one that was parked on a trailer out in the field and sat there for years and got sold to a shop class in Texas, and which now resides in Mr. Ralph Lauren's collection and is worth God's amount of money. But anyways, that's coming up. So I appreciate it. Everyone take care and see you on the flip side. Thanks.
This episode has been brought to you by Grand Touring Motorsports as part of our Motoring Podcast Network. For more episodes like this, tune in each week for more exciting and educational content from organizations like the Exotic Car Marketplace, the Motoring Historian, Break Fix, and many others. If you'd like to support Grand Touring Motorsports and the Motoring Podcast Network, sign up for one of our many sponsorship tiers at www.patreon.com/GT Motorsports. Please note that the content, opinions, and materials presented and expressed in this episode are those of its creator, and this episode has been published with their consent. If you have any inquiries about this program, please contact the creators of this episode via email or social media as mentioned in the episode.